That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Empire of Light, the 10th film directed by Sam Mendes, that's not counting his film stage productions, that premiered at the 2022 Telluride Film Festival before it went to Toronto. And Searchlight Pictures is releasing it theatrically December 9th, 2022.
Do I know Sam's other films?
Yes. His first film right out the gate was American Beauty, which won him Best Director and Best Picture. He did Road to Perdition with Tom Hanks, Jarhead. He directed 2 James Bond films, including Skyfall and Spectre. His last film was 2019's 1917, the World War I film, which was shot by Roger Deakins and won him an Academy Award. That's cinematographer. He's reuniting with Sam Mendes again for this film. The energies of Empire of Light feel very much like a combination of Revolutionary Road and Away We Go, which were both Sam Mendes films in 2008-2009.
So you named all of them.
Almost.
Great. So I really like this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think Olivia Colman's performance is like top tier.
Yes, as usual. Mm-hmm.
I actually think I might even like her performance better than Cate Blanchett's in Tar. I think Tar's a better movie. I think they're equally great, but on opposite ends of the spectrum.
It's 2 different methods.
It's 2 very different methods.
And are you attracted to lightness or darkness, maybe?
I'm attracted to darkness, but...
Same. So Cate Blanchett kind of has it for me.
Right, but I think Olivia Colman's my favorite actor.
Really?
Yeah.
Or of all time? Or currently?
Of all time. I mean, not counting Sigourney Weaver, but...
Well, I know. But you also have a thing for Willem Dafoe, Nick Cage, Katharine Hepburn.
They can all live in the same sphere.
Of course they can.
Yeah. No, she's so great. I also feel like we'd be good friends if we met.
Which is why you need to see her in Tyrannosaur.
I know. That's a hard movie to watch, though.
It is. Have you seen it?
No, but I know about it.
Yes, it is very hard to watch. But
I don't want to see... I got cut off again. What did I... Tyrannosaurus? Tyrannosaur? Yeah, I know that's a hard movie to watch. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see my friend get beat up. Anyway, so the basic story of this film, Olivia Colman plays a woman named Hilary. Mm-hmm. It's 1981 in the UK.
It's smaller coastal town, yeah.
She works at like an independent cinema.
Called The Empire.
When we first meet her, she seems kind of sad, quiet. She's like an assistant manager at this theater. We do see her visit her doctor, and it's made clear that she's on psych meds, lithium to be precise. And she explains, like, it makes me feel numb. And the doctor's like, well, you get used to it, you're fine. So one day, a new guy gets hired named Steven, a younger black guy. And immediately the two of them take a liking to each other, and it quickly escalates into a sexual relationship. One of their co-workers named Neil, he tells Hilary, like, girl, maybe you want to keep your personal life like outside of work and not, like doing shit at work. So she tells Steven, like, maybe we shouldn't be doing this here. Let's just do it outside. And Steven says, actually, why don't we just not do it at all? And that sends her into a spiral because we see her get happier with Steven as their relationship blossoms, which is also causing her not to take her medication.
Because she wants to feel.
She wants to feel. So we get glimpses of her, like, maybe being a little manic. So she spirals. And it's important to know that the person who runs the theater is played by Colin Firth.
Mr. Ellis. Mm-hmm.
And his character is also having a sexual affair with Hilary.
But kind of abusing the nature of their
power dynamic.
Yes.
And Colin Firth's character is married, so he's not behaving the way he should be. So everything sort of culminates with there is a pretty big premiere of Chariots of Fire happening at this theater. Mm-hmm. So it's a big night for them. And Hilary's not invited because she's not even working. She's like on leave, like stress leave or something. And Hilary shows up dressed like a candy wrapper. It kind of causes a scene. First, she gets on stage when she isn't supposed to, and gives like a little talk and reads a poem, which you can talk about. And then when she gets off stage, Colin Firth chases her out. And he's like, you ruined my night. You knew how important it was for me. And Olivia turns around and sees that Colin's wife is there and basically tells her like, oh, I've been sleeping with your husband. And she tells her what they do, how they do it. And then she says, if you don't believe me, check his desk. This drawer on the left has the condoms, and walks out.
And she's backed up by Neil, who supports her statement.
And then her coworker who had told her stop having sex at work also supports her. So they call social services on her because clearly she's out of control.
Well, I think her neighbors, technically.
The social services get called on her, and then she gets taken away. So during that time, Stephen has met this new younger lady, and he's sort of interacting with her.
That we're told that was actually his first girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, that comes into his life again.
And then one day they're walking on the beach, and they see Hilary. So Stephen approaches her, says he misses her, hopes that she comes back, because Colin Firth is no longer working there. And Hilary's like, actually, Neil offered me a job and I'm taking it. So then we see her go back, and then it seems like things are nice, but then one day they hear like what sounds like a parade.
During a party to celebrate her return.
Yep. And they go outside, and to the audience, it's like, oh, this is nice. There's like a parade. But then it turns dark very quickly because it's actually like skinheads like flooding the streets in protest. Mm-hmm. And 3 of them in particular, earlier in the film, had harassed Stephen. So as all of the employees are trying to lock up the theater, those 3 guys see Stephen, bust through the doors, beat him up very badly. So now Stephen's in the hospital for weeks trying to recover. And when he gets out, he tells Hilary, like, I did what you told me to do. I got into college, and I'm leaving tomorrow. Of course, Hilary is sad, but she gives him a very nice, like, goodbye. And the final scene of the film is, we had learned that Hilary, even though she's worked in a theater for years, doesn't really ever watch movies. And I think a big theme in this film is, like, the magic of cinema. So Stephen's character had explained to her, like, you should watch these movies. Like, they can bring you joy. So in the final scene, she goes to the theater after it's closed and catches the projectionist as he's leaving and says, will you show me a movie? And he picks a movie for her that you can explain. And we see her go through the range of emotions. The end.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
I thought it was a beautiful story. It's very basic.
I think that I had some issues with kind of the screenplay. Notably, this is Mendes co-wrote the script for 1917. This is his first time writing a screenplay by himself, and I think it kind of shows.
I had said to you earlier, it feels like, it's like Beyonce and Destiny's Child. Like, without Olivia Colman, this would just be like an okay movie.
Sure.
But the performance she gives is so top-notch that it really sends it. But I agree, the story, it's very predictable. We know exactly what's going to happen.
We're 1981, interracial romance, mental health
Big
issues.
age gap.
You know exactly. Yeah, it's going to hit it hits all of those notes that you expect it to. I do think Michael Ward is quite good as well, opposite Olivia.
Oh, that's Stephen.
Yes.
Yes, I did like him.
And we reviewed him in Blue Story, Beauty, the unofficial Whitney Houston film that Andrew Dosan
He's
directed.
in that as the brother?
Mm-hmm. And The Old Guard. So yeah, I really liked his presence, and it's really kind of a different role from what we've seen from him already, which I really appreciated. However, this feels very much like something written by a white person that, is told through the perspective of a white person who's just becoming aware of racism towards the black people that they love. And in many ways, that kind of reminded me of James Gray's Armageddon Time, which is also a release that's about to come out, where this white person that's, seeing the world for the first time the way it is.
But I thought that seemed... I don't know. I thought her reaction... It felt genuine to me, that component of it.
It does feel genuine, but it just seems like it's very much from that mindset.
But it made sense to me that her character, because she's so preoccupied with her own, she's suffering from serious mental health issues, and we don't get a lot of background. There is one very good scene we'll get to where she talks about her mother, but I mean, I think it made sense to me that a character like her would be so preoccupied with her own demons that she's not really seeing what's going on around her. And then when she first sees Steven, I don't get the sense that she's fascinated by him as much as she's just attracted to him.
Agreed, yes.
So it felt very much like she wasn't objectifying him in any other way except she just thought he was attractive and he was kind to her, so that made her open to be vulnerable to him.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying that it's a fault of the film. It just
Sure.
feels very much that's what it's geared towards.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think there's some rudimentary feelings about it.
Sure. Well, yeah, and I agree, and I have notes on that. But I wanted to start with just, it's very interesting, the opening scene with her and her doctor, and how cold the doctor seems towards her, and it just, I don't know, I felt a lot for her character. And then when he asked her, like, do you have anyone you can talk to? And it's like, fool, I'm supposed to be talking to you. Like,
We haven't even examined her yet, and she knows, like, I know she's lying when she says that.
Right.
She's like, yeah, of course I have friends and family. It's like, oh, I bet.
yeah, that was very frustrating. Also, the scenes where she's like, because we get 3 scenes, I think, where she's having sex with Colin Firth, and it just feels so icky.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Well, he's pressuring her for fellatio and to have penetrative intercourse, and she's always kind of like, no, let's just do that. Yeah, it's awkward.
but I think it's well done too, because we don't really get a sense of what she wants. We just kind of get a sense of what she doesn't really want, and that she's doing things that maybe she feels like she needs to do, which
Or
I
that might
think
be
felt very authentic.
authentic in that maybe this is her only outlet, but it's also toxic.
Right.
Yeah.
So it felt very authentic. I think probably the crunchiest scene to me is when, on Steven's first day, the theater's beautiful. And it's a huge building, but we only see that 2 screens are in operation.
Are you talking about the pigeon?
Yeah. So initially, Hilary is giving Steven the tour. She's being very cold and like curt with him. And then they are at the end of the tour, and he's like, well, what's that? Because there are stairs leading up to a door and it says no entry. And she's like, oh no. And he's like, come on, please, we have time. So she takes them up there, and then it's like another world. There are 2 more screens. There's like a ballroom or a restaurant with a beautiful view of the ocean. But it hasn't been in operation for a long time. So there are like pigeons flying around. And that's when we see Steven sees that there's like a pigeon that appears to be hurt, like in like a cupboard. So he has to reach up and get it. And then his bare midriff is exposed. And that's when we get the idea that Olivia, Hilary, finds him attractive. And that was fine until he wants to mend the pigeon's wing. Mm-hmm. And then that felt very much like a Hallmark movie to me. I don't know that I needed... Because I think it's trying to demonstrate that he's a gentle person.
Yes.
But then the next scene is him working, and then him making fun of an older man who's disabled. And then she gets very upset at him. Mm-hmm. And I thought that writing, like those 3 things put together, seemed like a very basic way to show... sort of his character and her character.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a little corny.
But also the contradictions, especially as a younger person who might mean well, but also acts immaturely sometimes. But I think that Mendes, I feel, is trying to really connect to a period of cinema, like the 70s and 80s, when you'd see a lot more roles for women like this that we see of Hilary, of the kind of these broken down women that are leading a film, and that's not uncommon. But very specifically, I think he's trying to channel Hal Ashby, in particular Harold and Maude, of course. But in that, I think, is why we get Being There, starring Peter Sellers as
the film
that she actually does watch at the end.
At the end,
because I think Harold and Maude to him would have felt too on the nose, and I think that Being There is another film about an offbeat character living in a world. In this case, Peter Sellers playing somebody that has only learned to be what he is through television, and then being forced to go off in the world and reinvent himself. And Hilary is being kind of the opposite of that in that moment, as she's never really watched anything. So her conception of the world is very narrow, right? Mm-hmm. But in a different way. Again, I think Being There probably works better, and I think Harold and Maude would have been too on the nose. But I do like that it is tinkering around with, and sometimes is very successful in recalling the feelings that I had the first time I watched those movies.
Sure. I really like the character of Neil.
Yes. Who I couldn't tell if they were trying to say that he might be gay. He was just
seemed like a sweet guy.
He was so observant for a heterosexual.
I don't know. I just thought he seemed really sweet.
He did.
Okay, I also like the use of humor because this is a very quiet film and quite emotional, but I like the way the humor is used, primarily via the projectionist, who's played by
Toby Jones,
who's such a nice accent to the movie. Because like a grouchy little thing who's running, very particular about the films and how all that works. And then there's a moment where he's going off about people smoking and how that affects the quality of the film. And he's just like raging on about it. And then a few scenes later, we see him smoking in the projection room. I just thought he added a nice amount of levity. But then he does get a scene towards the end with Hilary where we learn some information about him. Specifically that he hasn't seen his son in 14 years and he can't even remember why.
Yeah, he can't remember why he ran away.
Yeah.
He's telling Hilary that she's running away. But
I think probably there's so many good scenes, but I think probably the best scene is when after Hilary shows up to the premiere and goes off and then goes to lock herself in the house, Stephen goes to check in on her. And she is like drinking. And the way the lighting is, and she has like, it looks like a candle burning. So it almost is like she's telling a scary story by the campfire. And she's going off. But it's not like, it's not over the top. It's like she's angry and emotional. I think this performance is so great because Olivia Colman is doing all the things. She seems somber, yet happy, angry, and then manic. But none of it is like extreme. It all feels very much within like, something manageable, like
the realm of the manageable.
And I just think that really requires a lot of skill. Like this lady is just so talented. And I was saying too, I think like just because I had said in a previous review that I think Cate Blanchett, no one should show up to the Oscars because she's going to get it, but I think Olivia could show up. She could show up because it's like if Cate Blanchett, because I've been watching interviews with her talk about her method for Tar and just like the preparation, and she just has an answer for everything and how she approached things. And I bet if you talk to Olivia Colman, she's like, just give me the script. I'll read it, with some tea and I'll get a feeling for her. And then when she shows up, she just gives you what she gives you. And it's very obvious that it's just like, she's just that character and she's just living in it. And I think that's really impressive.
She's really good at channeling that emotional center that I think is even harder to find. And once again, I like that this feels like something you could have seen in 1981. But she also, has this just sad hangdog quality about her that reminds me of like a lot of actresses in 1940s British cinema, like that are strong and resilient and kind, but also like your heart breaks just watching them. And thinking of like old Vivien Leigh movies or Gene Simmons or Deborah Kerr, like somebody like she really does have that energy that I think we've just forced to kind of evaporate in most, at least U.S. film productions. But
yeah, I really like her.
I also thought it was funny that she, as a parting gift, and I really like her parting scene with Michael Ward. Where he's going away to college for architecture, and she gives him a book of poetry, and she reads a poem by W.H. Auden at her outburst at the theater. Yeah. No, but the poem at the end is about the trees by Phil Larkin, and I believe that's the poem that also kind of closes out the sentiment in Marcel the Shell with Shoes On,
which I also really like.
Yes,
I would highly recommend this film. Yeah,
it looks great. It's funny. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did the score, and I don't, because we just watched. It hasn't been even 24 hours since we watched this, and I don't really recall the score. I don't remember
anything about the score except that Stephen's character likes a certain type of like reggae music, and so we hear a couple of selections, but I don't recall anything outside of that.
Just her listening to music, but not.
When she's having her second sort of manic attack, she is playing something very interesting. What would you give this movie?
3.5.
I would give it 3.5 out of 5. Anything else? Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.